Welcome to Main Street Talks, a small business for America's future series of live conversations where small business owners can learn from one another, share what's working, and discuss the challenges affecting their businesses, employees, communities. While every business is different, many of these pressures facing Main Street are shared, and there is a value in understanding how others are adapting and responding. And so today we're going to have a really exciting conversation. But before we kind of hop into really why we're all here, a couple quick housekeeping things. Today's webinar is really a conversation with business owners for business owners. So we definitely would love for you all to utilize the chat and the Q&A. Feel free to jump in if you have questions or even kind of feeling some of the same concerns that the business owners that will be joining us today are. This is a space for you. And so we look forward to hearing from you in the comment section. And then as we kind of hop in today, as I mentioned at the top, we are talking about the growing kind of affordability challenges facing small business owners and working families. And across the country, business owners like yourself are confronting higher costs on nearly every front. Your customers and employees are also feeling many of these same pressures as it relates to their own household budgets. We know at Small Business for America's Future that these challenges don't just happen in a vacuum. Decisions happening every day here in Washington or even in state capitals often are having direct consequences for the cost of doing business, the availability of our workforce, as well as the economic health of our local communities. So we want to hear about it today and really want to hear from some amazing small business owners who are actually experiencing some of these pressures in their own local communities. And so I would like to welcome our kind of guests today that are going to be joining us to come on camera for a conversation. So joining us from Houston, Texas is Dr. Alexia McKirkin, owner of the Sports and Wellness Doc, a chiropractic and sports and wellness practice. Gabe Hagen, a good friend of mine, CEO at Brick Road Coffee Community Corporation, a coffee house with multiple locations now, and a roastery in Tempe, Arizona. And Andrea Vigil, owner of Allegiant Electric, an electric contracting company specializing in commercial and residential services, EV charging, and solar energy in Las Vegas, Nevada. Hey, everybody, how are you doing?
Great, thank you.
Nice to meet
Awesome.
you.
Perfect. Thanks so much. So good to see y'all. And I think today, and because of the kind of conversation we're having around rising costs, I think it's really important to really kind of kick off having a conversation about how running a small business has really never been easy. It feels like right now it feels especially more difficult, but you all are in it more than me. So how would you describe the current business climate and really what's kind of hitting you the hardest right now? And why don't we go ahead and start off with Gabe?
First of all, thanks for having me. I love having these conversations. I think they're really important for business owners to kind of share our stories. Um, I think the thing I feel like I'm a broken record, but it's just the chaotic and unpredictability of kind of everything. We've gone through the past several months, almost a year now, with dealing with tariffs. We're a coffee roasting company that opened our roastery mid last year, and we've just been, I feel like, underwater ever since. I was doing some numbers, and we've had fantastic loyal customers at our cafes. Our year over year at our first cafe, we hit the same revenue numbers. We were crushing it, but in Arizona, we have a summer, and so it's very tough to survive that downturn. That's our winter. Everybody hibernates in the summer. So we kind of prepare for it. The first quarter of the year is supposed to be what gets us through summer. And last year, we went into summer with a profit of close to 50,000 in our cafe that bled throughout summer, but it still sustained us, right? This year we're going into summer with a profit of around 4,000. So we have just same revenue, but the expenses has gone up by almost 45,000 just in little things, and it's so hard to manage. So it's
Yeah.
yeah, the unpredictability of everything is so fun.
Yeah, I can imagine that is a lot. And speaking of a place that is forever summer as well, I know Andrea, especially working in the kind of EV world, like what are some of the things that you're seeing? What's kind of hitting you the hardest right now? And how would you describe the business climate in Las Vegas?
I think for us, thank you for having me. But for us, with regards to federal contracts around EV and renewable energy infrastructure, that was a big part of our business. And basically, that has completely gone away overnight. We're also having to make some of the hardest decisions and letting go some of our employees who have been with us for many years, who are skilled. And, as a family-owned business, we become like a family, and having to look at our business and start making cuts. That's something that we're having to take a look at right now. At the height of our business, we were in around 2022, we had about 30 employees and 11 service vans, and right now we're about 5 employees and 1 service truck. So we've seen a significant reduction in the last 4 years. And we're also, being selective with regards to the work that we're taking on. If it's, rural work, we have to make decisions looking at gas prices and having to turn away, some of those smaller projects as well. And also being very mindful on the material that we're buying, price shopping, and making sure that we're able to get the material at an affordable price to where we could still make some profit.
Yeah, and I can imagine that is hard, especially when you're planning for a certain set of projects and plans, and when those don't necessarily go to fruition, how do you kind of adjust and deal with some of that stuff? And so I can imagine that has been a bit difficult to kind of navigate of late.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'd also now like to kind of bring in Dr. Alexia McKirkin, which I will like to say she mentioned when we first were meeting that she has been officially in 10 years in business. So congratulations, an amazing milestone. And so what in your kind of neck of the world, I mean, the last time we talked, I think Alexia, you had mentioned you were a healthcare provider who couldn't afford to provide health insurance. Like how has the climate been in Houston? What are some of the things that are hitting you kind of the hardest right now? How have you been navigating since the last time we checked in?
First and foremost, thank you so much, Sammy. It's been rough, to be honest with you. I still can't even offer my employee insurance. And also, I don't have insurance for myself because I mean, it's the costs are so high, and then it's so horrible because the premiums are going up for patients, which means that the executives and the higher ups are pocketing it, but then they're decreasing the amount of money that the providers are getting when we're the ones that's doing all the work. So why are the executives sitting at the top that's going on vacation and on their yacht getting all the money while we are providing? And then some people are getting laid off, losing their jobs. So then they don't have coverage. So they're coming in less or not even at all because they can afford it. And as much as I would love this, it's just not feasible to sustain a business, be able to pay staff, and also have a family as well.
Yeah, no, and I can imagine that that's been difficult. And if you've seen these changes kind of growing since some of the recent like programs have gone away, I know that there was some kind of large scale kind of healthcare cuts. Like, are you seeing that show up, I think, within your own local community? Like, is your customer base not able to really afford the services or the kind of the healthcare needs that they once did?
Yeah, most definitely, most definitely. People are, if they can qualify, they're switching over to Medicaid, but Medicaid only covers so much. So a lot of the things that they do need, then they can't get them. I had a patient that came in, she was a Medicare patient, and unfortunately, there wasn't anything I could do for her because she had broken screws in her neck. But I'm like, you have to go get a MRI. She's like, well, you can't just, ma'am, I'm sorry, I cannot touch your neck with a 10-foot pole, because that would put me. And she's like, nobody wants to help me. Nobody now has apologized to her immensely. It's not that I don't want to help. It's just that I'm limited in what I can do.
Yeah, no, completely. That is an awful thing to hear, and I imagine that also makes running an actual business difficult too, right? When you can't help the patients that you need and do the things that
Yes.
you do. And like very similar to what Dr. Alexia just mentioned, like small businesses really are the kind of centers of their kind of communities, right? They're the folks that are like, I went to the same restaurant every day, every Friday night with my family. Like the local business owner knew us. They sponsored like the baseball team that I was on growing up. And so like you really are in the fabric of your communities and are seeing it first. When your customer base, Gabe, you work with a great group of customers who love your community space, but when your customers are stretched thin by rising costs, that the same ones that are hitting your business, like what does that really mean for a Main Street business like yours?
I mean, we feel it everywhere. I think that's one of the reasons why we saw like the year over year expense increase was everything creeps up for everybody, and you kind of just feel it in different places. Our customers are very loyal. They come in every day, but we've been noticing now for the last 6, 8 months that the average ticket, or they're not buying the muffin, they're not getting a bag of coffee, those little extra things that we kind of rely on to help drive, our growth and our ability to pay what we pay for our employees. That's been taking a downturn, and it hits us in every way. Our employees, I'm a coffee shop. Most of my employees are college kids or young adults trying to get by, trying to afford rent in a ridiculously high-priced uh, housing market and real estate market out here. And so when you have gas go up to what it does, now I have to have the conversations with my staff where they're actually asking, like, can we work 10 hours a day instead of like 8? Like, so I can only drive 4 days a week versus 5. And like, that's really difficult to do because it's like at one side, I understand and I want to do it. The other side is that sustainable for a human to like put yourself through just to like grind it out like that? So it's always tough trying to be there and being that face for the community because we hear it from our employees, we hear it from our customers, and it's just everybody's feeling it. That's the one thing. It's like general consensus. Everybody's feeling it.
Yeah, well, and we see Patrick Hall, another Small Business for America's Future member in the Q&A here saying like exactly what you just said, Gabe. Like it is so much more than just everyday household cost. It's really also what is the cost of keeping that business open, whether it's, rising rent, it's gas prices, and even kind of access to capital. And I know, Andrea, you'd mentioned, work has been kind of start stop, contracts maybe weren't coming in like they used to. I don't know if you want to kind of speak to what you're seeing as well as maybe answer a little bit more to like what Patrick was asking about, like what does that cost of running your business and what does it mean when your customers like can't afford to do the same residential projects they once did?
Oh, definitely. Even on the residential side, I mean, people are starting to hold off on even small projects like installing ceiling fans, just, EV chargers if they're, looking to get a Tesla or something, any type of vehicle. We're seeing the flux of people, you know, holding off on new projects and basically just kind of not wanting to even proceed forward, or they're wanting, additional discounts on that type of work and putting improvement projects on the back burner. We also are starting to see some projects in our community that we had already bid on that basically just completely stopped. There's no movement at all on the project, and we don't even know, what ended up happening to that project. So that's another project that we lost as well. So it's just really trying to understand, what's happening, try to go with the next project that's coming up and making sure that we're able to keep our guys employed and, pay for our rent and everything else that's happening around us.
Yeah, no, and I can imagine, and I know oftentimes we talk about on a lot of these webinars and these conversations that like sometimes businesses are forced to make some of these tough decisions and really have to like determine like what is going to be the priority. How can I kind of show up? So have any of you, had to make some tough calls recently, whether it's like, raising prices because, you've had to absorb costs or cut hours or even maybe not been able to hire as the way you used to? Is anybody kind of having to see some of these ripple effects happening in your own business?
I know we have had to lay people off just recently in the last couple of years, and even within the last couple of months. We're literally down to 5 employees right now.
Wow. Down from 30?
Yeah, we
Right.
That's a big drop. Dr. Alexia, what about you? Any kind of impacts from any of this rising costs?
well, I can't lay anybody off because then that will make more work for me. Not to sound selfish,
No,
but
that's
I
fair.
definitely have had to cut hours though, because we just can't, sustain. So now with me working more for, I'm having to contract for other companies plus still run my business at the same time. So it does put more on my plate, but then also because we don't have as many people in the office, coming in, then it doesn't make sense to have so much staff in office. Whereas I'm doing a lot of more tele visits, a lot more virtual things, and I don't need a whole lot of staff for that. So just cutting hours in that regard.
Yeah, no, I can imagine that that does make an impact on the people's lives that you're working with. It probably makes an impact on how many patients you can see, and I can only imagine the difficulties that really come with that. And I know, Gabe, when we, this time last year, it was like tariffs everyone was talking about, and it was like the big kind of ticket item that was causing all this cost. When we talked earlier this year, it wasn't your biggest cost anymore. What happened? Did you have to? How is that kind of showing up in your day to day?
Yeah, I think, we source so many different products as a coffee shop, whether it be the cups, the syrups, the lids, all of the things that add up. And when you look at the math of what it takes to sell a cup of coffee, people always say it's a great margin. But what they don't realize is we have to sell a lot of cups to get that margin to pay for the overhead, the staffing, the labor, all of that. We're actually in the process right now of, after identifying how bad the bleed was on expenses the last 3 months, we're in the process of updating our pricing, and our average increase is going up by about 12%, which is the largest increase I've done in the 5 years I've been there. But that's just to get us back to the same cost of goods that we had 18 months ago.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it hasn't stopped, right? Like I think
Nope.
we're kind of in this situation where everyone's having to absorb these additional costs, kind of come up with some like new MacGyver-y ways to kind of get by. And I mean, have you all experienced a business climate like this before? I know we were talking like, Dr. Alexia, you've been in business for 10 years, Andrea, 11, Gabe, you survived COVID-19 while opening a brick and mortar store. Like, have you experienced anything like this in your careers as business owners?
No, you would think that with COVID that business would have been bad for me. Actually, business was probably the best that it's ever been for me during COVID. And then now with this whole administration, it has gone down horribly. So trying to maneuver and figure things out and pivot and shift during this, like this is horrible. This is probably the worst it's ever been. Before, besides when I very first started, and I was trying to figure out like, what am I doing here? Why? Why? But no, this is awful because we're already in the trenches. Like I've got so much invested. I have staff. Like it's a lot.
Yeah. Gabe?
We're in the same situation too with regards to, we were doing better during COVID than we are right now as well. This is the hardest time that we've seen in our business in our 11 years of being in business as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the pre-COVID experience, but I mean, starting up in 2021, we had the privilege, question mark, of opening a brick and mortar retail during that time. And I look back and what we were dealing with at the time when we were trying to do that first opening and get things off the ground. We were dealing with, boats stuck out in the Port of Long Beach like for months at a time, and the unpredictable cost of goods because would it even make it on shore, or when will it come on shore? But the difference between then and now is it felt like every month it got a little bit better. Not great, but it got a little bit better. So there was like that little bit of relief that we felt just month over month. Here, I feel like it's the opposite. I feel like every month there's a new fire that pops up, and I don't know where it came from, and I don't know how it started. Like it's frustrating because as a business owner, I want to sell coffee. I want to be able to create an ecosystem where I can be taking some of our, young adults and sharing some of the things that I learned at a much older stage in my life, and like how can I help them grow and mature and move into the careers that they want to move into, and be that community pillar for our neighbors. And instead, I'm sitting here trying to figure out how to navigate tariff refunds. Can I even request them? Turns out, no. No, I'm not the importer of record. Didn't know that was a thing. Learned so much about import-export in the last year. But those are the things that I've had to spend my time doing, and I just wanted to run a coffee shop.
Yeah. Yeah, you didn't sign up to be a firefighter, right? At this point in
Nope.
time, or a licensed custom broker or all of the above. And I'll say if anybody listening in is experiencing any kind of needing new information around tariffs, we definitely invite you to join our regular series, the Tariff Tea, all about how to like get those resources from real experts. But Patrick Hall here in the chat kind of really said it both. This kind of affordability squeeze really is cumulative, right? It is kind of everything coming down the pipeline all at once. It's not just trying to be competitive with the workforce. It's not just kind of keeping up on what's happening overseas because our gas prices are going up or we've had to absorb tariffs. It really is kind of this perfect storm of awful, unfortunately. And business owners that really have been kind of that canary in the coal mine, calling for help. And so, I always like to end on something looking towards solutions. We don't always want everything kind of doom and gloom. And so, like, as leaders of both Small Business for America's Future and of your communities, what would you say you would need from either your elected leaders or even groups like Small Business for America's Future right now?
I'm happy to kick it off.
Go for it, Gabe.
I think, I feel, again, broken record, stability. We need stability in pricing. That's the single biggest thing that would help us be able to plan and predict and manage our growth. And I think it's creating an environment where it's time to look at things differently, right? We need innovative solutions. We need to be looking at how the economics actually function in a post-COVID, post-pandemic world and all of the things we've kind of seen over the last 4 to 5 years. And I think it's time to recenter the traditional worker, the workforce of America, and small businesses, I think, are the ticket to supporting our communities and our neighbors and just re-envisioning how we build an economic system here. So stability and support for the Main Street.
We love it.
And I'm gonna piggyback off of Gabe.
Yeah, go for it, Dr. Alexia. Yeah,
Oh, I was saying I'll piggyback on.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, definitely stability and support. Stability, so that way we can be able to maintain our businesses comfortably and not, struggling, feeling like we need to take out this loan, that loan, and then get in further debt. Support with resources and grants and be able to help us to succeed. Also, protect ACA premium tax credits. That one policy change could immediately lower costs for small business owners and their employees and our employees who depend on marketplace coverage. And then also stop the doggone cuts to Medicaid, please. Like, stop it. It's hurting everybody.
Yeah, we got a healthcare provider who wants to offer healthcare. That it shouldn't be too difficult of an ask, but hey,
Yes,
it is.
darn it.
And then Andrea, what would you ask for either people from us, like Small Business for America's Future, or your elected leaders?
I would like them to prioritize small businesses for federal contracting, especially with EV, battery storage, and renewable energy opportunities. When federal work is available at the forefront, we're also big players with regards to this. They're coming out with all these on-the-job training programs, but there's a disconnect because we need the work in order to get these employees trained and out into the field and doing. I think if they're able to pass policies that'll cover costs across the board so that customers and contractors feel confident enough to spend money again, that would definitely be helpful. And we can afford things and all of us could get back to work. We all want to work and we have a lot of people that want to just get out there and do quality work. We just need the opportunities.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I am keeping an eye on the time, but I kind of want to end on one final question for each of you all. And you can sum it up into one word or however you want to do it. But these are conversations for business owners. I've actually been getting messages live in my LinkedIn for people tuning in that they're loving this. So like, what's some advice, like what's one piece of advice that you would give to your fellow business owners listening in, should they be in similar shoes as you all? Why don't we start with Andrea, go Alexia, and then we'll end with Gabe.
I say get involved, stay engaged, and continue communicating with other small businesses to see, what's going on and just making sure that our voices are heard out there.
Dr. Alexia?
Find out who your local policymakers are. Write them letters. Get, like Andrea said, get with your community and let them know, like hard push, because we can't be silent. As small business owners, we can't be silent because we're getting drowned out by the corporations. So use your voice.
Yeah, I
Gabe?
mean, I echo that 100 times over. It's scary to stand up and use your voice. There's always that risk of pushback or of, will this hurt my business? I will say that when we share our authentic stories and our true realities, we're not sharing it from a partisan lens. We're sharing it from just wanting you to know what our experiences on the grounds are. And so I think doing that is really powerful, connecting with the other business owners. And then the one thing I tell everybody, one of the most impactful things was ever shared with me, I went to a like executive education class I got to go to, and they asked about diversity spend or about how we're impacting our communities. And they asked us to look at our P&Ls and pull out every single, certified diverse business that we support, every single business that we know is local. And a lot of us were surprisingly not spending much of our own expenses in those areas that we said were important to us. So envisioning how we spend, reimagining how we spend our money, and yeah, it might cost a little bit more to go to the local office supply company versus the big box, but that little extra is going to do so much more for your local economy and your local small businesses. So everywhere we can readjust and refocus our money to support other small businesses is huge.
Awesome. I couldn't have said it better myself. Invest in small businesses, and they will always show you why they are the ultimate drivers of our economy. Gabe, Dr. McClurkin, Alexia, Andrea, thank you so much for joining us today and being willing to kind of share your experiences with this wonderful group of business owners. We really do appreciate getting to hear from you all, and thank you all. For those of you who are kind of tuning in and kind of want to stay engaged, some of the folks actually said it here first. As a business owner, everything going on is directly impacting you first, right? You're the first to really feel some of these affordability squeezes. You have this really amazing kind of power with your voices. And so use that voice and share that experience with your elected officials, with your peers, with your communities, or with Small Business for America's Future. We'd love to stay connected with what's happening in your own Main Street communities, and we'll love to figure out ways to get you involved. And hey, maybe we'll have you on one of our next Main Street talks. And make sure you stay informed with all the decisions coming out of Washington, because they are having impacts. We encourage you to sign up with smallbusinessforamericasfuture.com and find ways so that we can hopefully continue to be a resource for each of you. But with that, I want to thank everybody for tuning in with us today and being a part of the special conversation and our first of many Main Street Talks conversations. Please feel free to reach out to us at our website, or you can email me directly and we can set up a time to chat. We appreciate it, and have a lovely rest of your Wednesday.